in casa mia.
There's so many young people today who have been brought up in a fast food culture. And you remember for your Sweet 16 party that we had at the restaurant?
I do.
And I said to you, invite 12 of your girlfriends and we'll have a Sweet 16 party, and invited them to come to the restaurant, and we had white tablecloth and the waiters, and I had beautiful individualized menus with a rose at each place, and we did this fancy dinner.
Yeah.
And how many of your girlfriends that night had said, these were 16-year-olds that had said that they had never been to a white tablecloth restaurant before?
And you know, this
I remember you mentioned that one.
From a
When you
affluent
invited me to dinner.
community, all from a very well-to-do upper class community, and had never been to a fine dining restaurant at 16.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a social statement, but that also makes a culinary statement. That here are young people, young women, who in a few years will be responsible for the nutrition, or they'll be responsible for nourishing their families, and they have no clue. They've been brought up on fast food and pizza and takeout.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the point of what we're doing. Is I think there's a lot of people out there that would like to cook. I mean, I think economically it's a lot more affordable to cook for yourself. But also I think people want to, but it's become this, this very mysterious, scary thing to do. And, part of what I want to learn is how to do it really simply, how to do it fast, so that we can demystify it, and get people in the kitchen again.
Well, a lot of it has to do with, when I think about what you do for a living and what your strong points are, you have very good organizational skills. And basically, when you're preparing a meal or you're preparing menus for the week, that's what it's all about, is knowing how to organize and a little forethought.
Mm-hmm.
You have to identify what your priorities are and what you have to do when. And once you do that, it's easy. In fact, not only is it easy, it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Very gratifying.
Yeah, and I think, sometimes people think that they have to know what everything, like what flavors go together and how to prepare these instantaneous meals. And something that I've learned from you is, you follow the recipes. You find your recipe, and once you use it a few times, you might add your own little twist, but you very much cook by the recipe.
Not really. Actually, what I would say is that you use a recipe initially because you're not familiar with something. But once you're, as you noted, once you do things several times and you become comfortable with it, you don't use a recipe anymore.
Right.
And that's the sign of a true cook, is when you understand food well enough that you don't need a recipe. But besides, when you're giving a dinner party, especially when it's for friends and it's with people that you're comfortable with, the focus is not necessarily the focus is not entirely on the food. The focus is on the dynamics of what's happening within the group.
Mm-hmm.
So usually, even when you have friends over, people are very forgiving. So you know what? If something isn't perfect,
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Right.
What you don't want to do is spend the entire night in the kitchen.
Exactly.
You want to be with your friends.
Exactly.
You might have to excuse yourself for a few minutes to kind of plate things or put things together, but when you're having a dinner party, the most important thing is interacting. It's not just about the food, it's interacting with your friends and making sure that they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
It has to do with beverage service and wine and making sure that your guests are comfortable, and then it's about the food, because that only enhances the experience.
Yeah.
So it also doesn't have to be fancy with difficult recipes. It's all about feeling comfortable and making your guests feel comfortable,
Yeah.
and hopefully eating something good in the meantime.